Hello, I'm the Angry Spork. For the longest time, it was canon that Kurt Wagner, the X-Man known as Nightcrawler, was birthed by Mystique, while his father was presumed to be a German count whom she may or may not have killed. But hey, Kurt was also going to be a priest, and a certain writer retconned that away with gusto. I'm taking issue with 7 issues of Uncanny X-Men that comprise the DRACO, a story which delved into a more elaborate branch of the Fuzzy Elf's family tree. Let's begin with Uncanny X-Men 428 and see if this story makes us want to turn the page or turn our heads. The cover is okay, perhaps kinda simple. Kurt in what looks like mid-teleport, waving his hands around, I guess working on his close-up magic routine. Written by Chuck Austin, with art by Sean Phillips and Dave McCaig. There's a Gah! Send it to hell! Sweet, merciful McGillicuddy, that is not a flattering rendition of Mystique. It's like she's trying to creep out her orthodontist and doing a really good job. Oh, yeah, this is a comic review. So we get some exposition about how Mystique is, well, mysterious. Having been a terrorist, spy, aristocrat, Raven Darkholme has had a lot of jobs, and connected to a lot of X-Men, including being rumored to be the blood mother to Nightcrawler. The test then asks, if it's true, what were the circumstances of Kurt's birth, and why was he abandoned so young? See X-Men Unlimited number 4. I reviewed it a couple of years ago. An editor's caption could have prevented all this. Maybe I missed something between dropping X titles and this story, but I don't recall anything suggesting Raven's story was fabricated. In fact, in that issue of Unlimited I mentioned, Forge seemed to have confirmed it. But more on that later. We begin 20 years back, where some guy has just finished the horizontal bop with a maid named Katja, whom he didn't think was interested in him since she was hired. She tells him to just enjoy their experience as she gets dressed, to meet her again after dark, in her room, in the castle. Well, they call it a house, but look at that thing! It looks so much like a castle, it should be packing heat and named Frank. He's not supposed to be in the main domicile after hours, but hey, he's also not supposed to be sleeping with the maids. The blonde heads to the kitchen, where she starts laughing, revealed to be Mystique. She's briefly seen by the real Katja, only to change into the more commonly used appearance at this time, the lady of the house, Raven Wagner. She claims her sudden blue complexion was from being out of breath after running, and wearing the maid's uniform as a kinky surprise for her husband. I dress as a maid for him, and for me, he drinks a lot of NyQuil and passes out. After confirming that Katja will be in her room that night, and giving an incredibly creepy smile, we jump to the end of the day, in the master bedroom, where the Baron, Christian Wagner, says that according to their doctor, Raven is not barren, so their inability to have children must be due to the hubby here. He drops to his knees, apologizing for being half a man, but Raven consoles him that it's okay, she loves him too, as he completely misses her eyes turning a blank yellow, while saying he's brought her so much joy already. Like, as happens later, that guy from earlier slipping into the real Katja's bed, scaring the life out of her like he was about to assault her, and the Baron rushing in to see what was going on. Raven reverts to her mutant form, laughing with wicked delight. She's a villainess, I get that she uses people, but this is a whole other strain of sickness. While she goes through in vitro fertilization treatment, she also spends time sleeping with other men, sometimes disguised as women the men know, like one's wife. With each one, she tells them not to talk and just, I assume, get on with what they're doing, while telling her husband they won't stop trying to conceive. Quite the lewd OCD, huh? At a party, the Baron introduces her to someone he's discussing business with, Herr Azazel, ruler of La Isla des Demonas, an island nation off Bermuda.
You're Satan, aren't you?
On a group horseback ride some other time later, when the two are out of earshot from the others, I guess, Azazel tells Raven the cruel truth that she won't be getting a child with the Baron. He's the past, but she is the future, suggesting she has a magnificent power and beauty neither he nor the world has ever seen before. Such is your mystique. In fact, you personify the term. In case you haven't guessed, I'm saying you should use that as your code name when you're fighting people with superpowers. Am I being too subtle about that? Later that night, she meets him in a church, drawn to this stranger despite trying to stay away because he frightened her. She wants him, so he suggests they do it right then and there. This shocks her, but he claims the sanctimonious morals and religious hypocrisies are beneath her, that she's more evolved than the rest of humanity, and he wants to worship her.
Don't you blaspheme in here! Don't you blaspheme in here!
She drops her nightgown, but he wants more, to show her real form. She nervously complies, he compliments her some more, then they proceed to knock boots. Sometime later, as the sun rises, presumably the next morning, Raven declares from atop a waterfall that she's in love, when she's surprised by Azazel teleporting behind her. He stays in the shadows, though we see his tail and some of his red skin, which makes me question whether or not he showed his true self to her during their tryst. Darkholme says she's pregnant and is in love with Azazel, but he replies with mild shock that she could even feel that emotion. Oh, he's pleased she's with child, though not for the reasons she may assume, but what they did was simple science, and it worked out how he wanted. She mistook physical passion for something more heartfelt. And that's why you wait until you're married, kids. He teleports away, telling her to return to her safe and protected life, and raise his child as the Baron's. Several months later, I assume, Christian has apparently been pressing the odd coincidence of his wife's pregnancy and Herr Azazel's sudden departure, how they had chemistry together, and how the Baron's own father suggested a genetic blood test. He feels awful for asking, and promises to make it up to her for the rest of their lives. Which isn't long for one of them, since she stabs him to death, drags his carcass outside, buries it, then starts cleaning up the crime scene, all while 9 months pregnant. It really is hard to be a single mother. Yeah, the pacing really feels like it hit fast forward. I'm not sure if Raven just somehow knew she was pregnant right after her affair with Azazel, like maybe being a shapeshifter clued her in. Then, boom, she goes right into labor right after killing the Baron. When she returns to human form, a doctor and Katja are tending to her as she delivers her baby, remarked as looking blue, terrifying the maid. When little Kurt finally arrives in all his 3-fingered, 2-toed, pointy-eared, tailed glory, the doc dismisses Katja's panic that this is a child of Satan. In fact, he's actually pretty chill about all this, saying the kid will likely get that reaction a lot in life, figuring it'd be more humane to suffocate the infant now and send him back to God. There are so many places I could go here, probably a tangent about disinformation spread by people who think they're doing good, mostly those who don't care about doing good, but I'll settle for the succinct, "What the expletive, dude?" One would think that the physician would not be so calm at this kind of thing, but maybe the idea is he's assuming this is kind of a genetic anomaly, like how some people are born without a limb or a tail-like growth. Even so, this feels like an extreme example, but not as extreme as stuffing out the kid because of his looks. Okay, so Raven apparently loses control of her powers for a moment because she reverts to her normal state, resembling her kid and being called a demoness. Given that little surprise Darkholme arranged for her earlier in the book, that comment feels far more justified. Now chased by villagers, Mystique curses Azazel and how stupid she was to let him do this to her. Having lost her riches and power, she sees no choice but to leave with nothing of value, including her son, dropping him over the waterfall. She asks why Azazel couldn't love her, looking upwards, and probably not noticing baby Kurt disappearing in a purple bamf. Next is the official part 1 of the story, issue 429, with Iceman on the cover ice surfing just above people's heads to risk a personal injury lawsuit.
Well, come on! A good lawyer couldn't win this case!
Art duties have been swapped to Philip Tan and Avalon Studios, as an intro page focuses on Kurt. Sure, his appearance made him an easy target for bigots, but he never let that get him down. Though the mystery surrounding his lineage apparently has. Again, questioning if Mystique is his mom, when and where he was born, yada yada yada. I guess for anyone that missed the prologue. Kurt longs to know the answers to these questions, but as he is about to discover, one should always be careful what one wishes for. Like whoever wished that Nightcrawler had a more convoluted origin story. Early in the morning, Cyclops is nonchalantly going about his business in the sub-levels, and not seeing Wagner port in behind him. Though, with no bamfing effect here, one could be forgiven for thinking Scott just turned into the elf. He seems to grunt or sigh heavily as he makes his way to the hangar, and an X-Jet on a 2-page spread. He begins moaning, grabbing his head as if in struggle, but then calms down to a more ominous, slightly salivated expression.
Ah, good boy, little drooly.
He takes the plane, interrupting Logan's 6-pack beer breakfast on the roof, So the knucklehead later barges in on a meeting in Xavier's office, dramatically asking if anyone sent Kurt on a mission. I know it's early, but the local Krispy Kreme opens in 5 minutes, and they always run out of the cranberry-filled crullers whenever we take the car. The discussion was about Bobby Drake's emerging secondary mutation, his body completely converting to ice, but of course that gets tabled. In a walk and talk, Charles explains that Nils Steiger, the mutant called Abyss, who can create dimensional warp holes, had trapped Mystique in his body a while back and disappeared. Having tried to locate him since, the Prof noticed numerous mutant trails from across the globe, many of them with teleportation abilities recently converging on a single location. Colonial Williamsburg! They're gonna host Burning Man there. In a kind of telepathic conference room, he pinpoints their destination, Isla des Damonas. Wait, is that supposed to be Monet? But last page it looked like it was supposed to be Husk in this group with the blonde hair, and heck, it was a blonde a couple panels ago on this page. That's kind of a confusing whoopsie. Anyway, Havoc recognizes that spot. Back in Uncanny 422, he, Kurt, and Lorna were there on an archaeological dig and saw evidence of an advanced mutant civilization predating all known human civilizations. Tools, domestication of animals, pizza bagels, they were light years ahead of the curve. On a Florida beach, a blue mutant is heading toward the water in a kind of trance, to the confusion of the people around him. And, is he drooling blood? That guy needs to brush more. Anyway, the X-Jet descends, spectators make a run for it, while Kurt opens the hatch door, as the two similar-looking men glare at each other. I hope he's about to take this guy to a dentist. His gingivitis is getting really bad. So, hey, remember how Havoc and Polaris have been a thing for the longest time? And how the X-Mansion got a human nurse named Annie, who held some anti-mutant bias? Well, since we last checked in on Austin's run, Alex and Lorna got engaged, and then he broke up with her at their wedding, after Alex realized he developed feelings for Annie, and the feeling was mutual. The green-haired ferrokinetic didn't take this well, trying to kill Annie and her child Carter, so that's why we get this scene of the new couple saying goodbyes, as Charles prepares to try psychically getting to the bottom of Lorna's emotional dysfunction of late. Juggernaut pulls his stepbro aside for a chat, which gets heated, shall we say, but more on these subplots next week. A team of Havoc, Iceman, Angel, Jubilee, Wolverine, and I'm guessing Husk, until there's another coloring mishap, have landed near the dig site sometime later, and shortly find Kurt, holding hands with others encircling a fire. They wonder if they should get him out of there, but perhaps they should be more worried about the menacing-looking figures emerging from the flames. Summoning demons seems like a really extreme reaction to running out of s'mores. Issue 430, with Juggernaut on the cover, walking through debris and dust clouds. When they say Kane Marco destroys the bathroom, they ain't kiddin'. Remember Sammy Poiré, the fish boy who was introduced when Chuck Austin started on Uncanny in that 3-part story I said was actually kind of good? Since attending Xavier's school, he made friends with Juggernaut, but was eventually returned to his parents in Canada by request of his mom, who didn't exactly like him hanging around with the Unstoppable One. Unfortunately, as we see, Sammy's dad, Claude, is an abusive jackwagon, smacking the kid around and accusing his wife of cheating and thus giving birth to someone else's mutant. While the parents argue, Sammy takes off, and after some more Lorna-related stuff, he is contacted by another friend from the X-Mansion, Annie's son Carter. Oh yeah, it turns out he's a mutant too. Did I forget to mention that? Yeah, he had telepathy and telekinesis, possibly Omega level, but according to the Marvel Wiki, he may or may not have lost them due to M-Day, when Scarlet Witch magically depowered most of mutant kind. Anyway, Carter doesn't exactly know how, but he's calling Sammy all the way from Isla des Damonas. I'm in the jungle! Really? Do they have fun and games? Do they have anything you need? Is it anything like Guns N' Roses said? Granted, I'm 10 years old, so I may be missing some of the subtext in that song. Gotta say, really cool effects on the astral heads here. Carter isn't worried about stowing away on an X mission without his mom's knowledge, because he figures Alex Summers, who's practically his dad already, will protect him. Young Samuel tries to advise him to get away from the glowing people he mentions, but is attacked, cutting off the connection.
Kabong!
Meanwhile, that bonfire is actually a dimensional rift, with lots of people on the other side, though they do look a lot more like scribbles. I get that with distance and perspective, artists can't give detail to dozens of people, and I mean no offense, But maybe fewer individuals with a bit more distinction would have made it clearer that this was supposed to be a massive army. Anyway, Logan and Paige are all for Operation Grab the Elf and Run, but Havoc suspects that Kurt's being manipulated, possibly as far back as joining that archaeological dig, and pulling him out of the evil drum circle could be harmful or even fatal. That's when two men appear behind them, one recognizing Alex and holding Carter by the scruff of his neck. This is what happens when you raise your kids on watching Caillou. It's Professor Dibble, another academic acquaintance of the X-Man, who is curious what the team are doing at his dig, and just happened to find Carter. Of course, the kid's not supposed to be there, but he wanted to be with Alex despite how unsafe it was. Yet none of this dramatic development is stopping the armed horde that's beginning to emerge from the portal. Bobby takes one of their arrows to the chest, and just as he's pointing out it would have killed anyone who wasn't Iceman, the projectile explodes, shattering him into thousands of icy chunks, much to the team's horror. Per his final wishes, his remains will be used to make slushies to be consumed by his closest friends at his funeral. Havoc orders Paige to break Wagner out of the circle, while Jubilee creates a distraction for Logan as he goes into the rift. Good idea! And if it closes behind him, I'm sure he can just claw his way back to this dimension. Or maybe heal himself back? Alex doesn't seem to be thinking very far ahead, is what I'm saying. As Dibble and his associate are trusted to take Carter to safety, Husk is unable to budge Nightcrawler from the ring of teleporters, as an enemy tries to clobber her from behind. Though fortunately she changed form to withstand the attack. As an enraged Warren tries to help, Alex has taken several arrows, which may explode and given his powers could be really, really bad. Like this enormous blast of blue energy, leaving a smoldering crater in its wake, ending the issue. If there was anyone left, I bet the urge to yell Ricola into it would be unbearable. Tune in next week to see just how dead our heroes absolutely aren't. I'm the Angry Spork, and man, have I got issues.